What's going on, guys? We are live for episode number 5 of the 8-Figure Podcast, where we talk about all advanced things on our journey to scaling to multiple 8 figures. So at this point, you guys have been following, we've done over $30 million in revenue, and we're trying to get to $100 million. Funny enough, when we hit 9 figures, I'm going to change the podcast to the 9-Figure Podcast. For today's episode, Sergio came up with a list of very interesting questions of this or that, where he's going to be asking me, do I prefer this or that? And then he's going to be answering them as well.
Let me break down the concept around why we're even doing this to begin with. So we wanted to bring you guys more intimately into the actual conversations that Joel and I have behind the scenes. And so I think that in the content space, no one is showing you like real time what business partners are discussing when they're building a business. And so the idea around the this or that is to really bring you guys into a more intimate, deeper experience as to the conversations that Joel and I are having. And so he doesn't actually know some of the questions that I've written down here, but I'm curious to get his perspective on them. So tell me whenever you're ready, Joel.
Well, one last quick little announcement. So Isaac is traveling. That's why he's not here. He's still alive, running ads, doing well. So he'll be back for episode number 6. With that in mind, take it away, Sergio.
Okay. Let's start first and foremost. I got you, bro. Don't worry. Let's start first and foremost with a conversation that I feel like you and I have had, not kidding, at least 100 times. At least 100 times. And if anyone has been in the info space for more than a couple years, you've probably found yourself asking this exact same question as well. It's this debate versus organic only or ads only. And of course, everyone's going to say, just find a way to do both, and they both work and you need to do both and blah, blah, blah. But if you had to choose just one, organic only versus ads only, what do you do, Joel?
So if I could grow my business through only organic content or only through ads, which one would I do? That's what you're asking.
Yep.
All right. First, let's lay out the pros and cons of each. I think let's just start with the pros. With content, you get much higher quality leads. You get much higher quality clients because you're essentially building a long-term relationship at scale with everyone before they buy. You can really educate people on your belief systems, your philosophies, how you do business before they even schedule a call. I think you have a lot more control on that. I think that's one of the biggest benefits, not beyond just like free marketing. I think the second big benefit is free marketing. Instead of spending, let's say $10,000 a day on ads, you spend $10,000 a month on a studio, lights, camera, maybe a creative director, and you're set. So I think it's just a lot cheaper relative to ads. Let's see, what are the other big benefits of organic? You can really build a lot of brand equity long-term, which you don't get with paid ads. So for example, if you turn off paid ads, it's kind of done. Whereas with a big organic brand, you have the benefit of having an audience, of having a big email list. And even if you decide to pause for a year and a half, like for example, we've paused Agency Lab now for like 6 months, and I'm gearing up to launch my new offer. I have a starting point. I literally have my Instagram, my YouTube, my email list, etc. So I think those are the big benefits. On the flip side, with ads, you have way more consistency. Like for me, that's like with ads, you have consistency. Lead flows down. You can spend more, come up with new angles. You don't have to like go creating YouTube videos like crazy. I remember one time like our organic content side slowed down and we didn't have ads going for Agency Lab because we were trying to just grow with organic. And the whole sales team was like, we need more appointments. What's going on? So you lose out on the benefit of consistency, which I think is huge. It allows you to breathe. You can kind of relax. That's a huge benefit. The other big benefit is you don't have to put yourself out there all the time. Like content requires a lot of effort. If Hormozi wants to stay relevant on social media, he has to keep creating videos. If we want to stay relevant on social media, we have to keep creating videos, et cetera, et cetera. Like, one of the big benefits of ads over organic is that it doesn't stop. It keeps going. Whereas with organic content, if you stop, it stops. I think the other huge benefit of organic is that it's a lot easier to scale up. You just spend more. That's it.
You mean with ads, not organic?
Sorry, with ads, exactly. Sorry, guys. With ads, you can just keep spending more and more and more and more and more. If I had to pick, so those are both sides, looking at it evenly. If I had to pick one over the other, I know this is going to be crazy. I'm going to give you a caveat, though. I would pick ads.
No, bro.
I'm going to give you
none of these like in-betweens.
I would pick ads unless I was mega famous, like Tony Robbins level famous, with a great brand. If I was like Tony Robbins level famous, where like
that's different. At that point, obviously, that's more of a no-brainer. But the idea around the question is like, not everyone's going to be Tony Robbins.
Fine. I would pick ads.
Okay.
I'll finish my case, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts. With ads, even though with organic, like, you have the best clients in the world, it's almost like you get to build a business with your best friends. Like, all of your best friends are clients because they follow you, they know you, they et cetera, and you miss out on that. But I think strictly business, from a business standpoint, I'd rather find offers that I can scale with ads, because I can scale them way farther. There's way more consistency, and I don't have to be promoting all the time. That's what I would do.
It's interesting.
I'll say last thing. I promise. This is one of the huge misconceptions of content, is that it's there forever. And even though you have brand equity, doesn't mean that you also have a shelf life. Like, every single famous person has their peak and then they kind of die out. You look at Andrew Tate, peak, die out. Even Hormozi, like, again, much love to Hormozi, and he's an absolute beast, but his content peaked and it kind of has died out. And you have to always be reinventing yourself anyways. Most creators have this cool kid effect where they come on for the first time, everyone loves them, everyone's excited about them, and then once they get used to them, it kind of dies out a little bit. So with ads, even though it also dies out, and in fact it might die out quicker, what I'm trying to say is you have to reinvent the wheel in both. That's really what I'm trying to say. So given that's true, I would rather just do it with ads because it's way more scalable. I don't have to show up, way more consistent. That's my take.
I got a couple of thoughts around this, and then we can move on to the next question. So I actually would 100% agree.
Full take.
Well, you've already touched on a lot of what I would have said, but I actually agree, but not for the reasons that you mentioned. I agree with the things you've mentioned, but on top of that, the real reason I would choose ads over organic is because with organic, it's actually harder for you to go off and sell the business long term. And so if you think about all the energy you put into building a business for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, or like what we did with Agency Lab, where we spent 5, 6 years building it, think of the lack of enterprise value you wind up building by not being able to run it through ads. And so, and yes, you do have to absolutely tweak both. But if you're that guy who's constantly creating new offers because you have to match what the market wants, you also wind up losing a little bit of brand equity. Whereas if you're relying on ads and you're tweaking the offers,
you mean, like, if I'm
doing content, yes,
you're always launching this new product.
Exactly. Whereas with ads, if you're testing on new angles because it's beginning to die out, well, then it's just ads. It's no big deal. You're not getting scrutinized for it as the person behind the ads. So that's the main reason why. I think it also creates a lack of emotional decision-making when you're relying strictly on ads. Whereas, let's be honest, if you're building the business around you as the founder, it's impossible to disassociate your own personal emotions from the decisions around the business, because to some extent you are the business, right? And it's totally fair. Whereas with ads, it's like you can make more logical, data-driven decisions that actually is in the best interest of the business. And so if I had to choose,
like give an example of when I was emotional, for example, with Agency Lab and it affected the business.
It's a good question.
I mean, I can give some too, but
I'll give you an example. There's numerous times where we needed a new offer, and it's actually what the business needed. So it was in the best interest of the business. But because you didn't want to come off like the guy that's always changing offers, which I totally understand, you didn't want to do an offer. You're like, nah, let's just hold off a couple weeks. And I this is maybe a couple years ago now, but I remember situations like that. I don't know if anything else really comes to mind, although obviously we've obviously had those moments. Maybe you have a better example than I do.
I mean, for sure. For example, there were periods where emotionally I was not in a good state just because of stuff going on in my life, and I didn't want to post because I just needed a breather.
That's a better example.
Lead flow goes down. So it's like, but we have a team. It wasn't a lifestyle business. It was like a legit business with over 30 employees. So if you have 30 employees, you can't just be like, well, I don't feel like creating content. You can't really afford to do that.
100%. And then you also become a slave to the content you create, because you have to some extent create the content that the market wants to generate those leads, because you have the pressure of being the ads, you're basically the marketing, right? If you're doing organic. And so you have pressure to create stuff that the market wants as opposed to creating stuff that you want. And so you wind up losing a bit of yourself from a personal brand standpoint, because it's not really you. You're essentially acting, right? But anything else on that, Joel? I think we've covered quite a bit.
So I think in a perfect world, because now I know the exercise is this or that, I would pick ads. It doesn't rely on me. If I want to take a break from content, I can take a break from content. If things need to be changed with offers, I won't have to feel like I'm just always slinging a new offer. And I could really do it from a place that feels aligned if I don't have that pressure. And again, I think the sales team overall is happier with leads from paid ads. I think as far as consistency, maybe not quality, but definitely consistency. And sales guys would rather have slightly lower quality, but way more consistency. What I would do in a perfect world, though, is this. If I'm running a heavy organic business, I would absolutely run retargeting ads. And I would also run ads to get more traffic to the content. And I would run things like story ads, Instagram DM ads, because people already are following you. They know who you are. They know what your offers are. But it's hard to always be pitching on your stories. So instead, just run a story ad so that you don't have to be posting stories every day. It's just always there, reminding your audience of what you do. So essentially, you're using your organic as traffic to get eyeballs, and you're using ads as a conversion mechanism to turn those eyeballs into money, into appointments, into leads, etc. So for example, with Agency Lab, what we did when I would say this is what we did at during some of our best months where we profited the absolute most. I think it was like $500K a month at 60% profit margins. What we did is we were running mainly organic with $10,000 a month in retargeting ads to get people to DM me, story ads, book a call ads, things like that. So now everyone that's watching my content is always getting reminded about the actual offer, and it doesn't put the pressure on me to always be posting with a call to action, which gets exhausting, to be honest, because you're then having to be pitching and you're the one doing it. So that's what I'll do. Now, on the flip side, if you're running a heavy ads business, what I would do is use content not as a way to generate traffic, but instead as a way to help convert. So it's like the same thing. If you're doing mainly content for traffic, you use ads for conversion. If you're using mainly ads for traffic to get eyeballs, you use content for conversion. Yeah. So for example, if you're doing heavy ads, send all of your booked calls to your YouTube channel. Make them watch your YouTube videos before their appointment. In your email sequence from when people first become a lead and opt in, send them a YouTube video every single day. Like now when we launch offers, one of the very first things that we try to do is get 10 case study interviews on YouTube. That's the new standard we've set for ourselves. 10 case study interviews on YouTube. These are like 20 to 30 minute videos where the founder is interviewing one of the clients. And now we get to send all 10 over the first 10 days of someone booking a call to the YouTube channel to watch those videos. On top of that, if we have other videos as well on the YouTube channel, they can consume those. So now we're using content to help get someone who doesn't know you, like you, trust you, to get to know you, like you, trust you way more quickly. And if that content isn't there, then paid ads is way harder. So, and one more thing on that. What we're also doing is, and I'll give you guys a quick little insight into how we pick offers. Now, when we pick offers, the first thing we ask ourselves is, can we scale it with ads? The second thing is like, cool, can we find someone who is going to have a great product? Can we find someone who is going to be a great spokesperson and who can continue to now promote it organically with creating content? And it doesn't have to be like promotional content. It could just be like adding value, showing client results, nurturing content to build a relationship, even just being real and authentic and doing some sort of like video journal. Because now all the traffic that we get from ads gets shown the organic content when they go to look up the founder to decide if they want to move forward, and they're way more likely to buy. So, all right, what's your take? I just talked a long time. You get the next like 10 minutes, bro.
No, I mean, I answered my take. Okay, this was a
how do you do it though? If you had to actually do it, not with this or that. I'm saying
no, dude. The thing is, I'm gonna wind up repeating exactly what you said. I would do it exactly the same way.
You agree?
Yeah, for sure. Without a doubt.
That's how we run our business. So
yeah, bro. Like if I didn't agree, I would have tried to change it.
Like, completely. We both run the same company.
Yeah, bro. Okay, this one's an interesting one.
You got to answer this one.
I got you. There's a couple of questions. There's a couple of ways we could do this. So it's cash flow business versus enterprise value business. So a business that has high exit value, but maybe it's far less cash flow, and you might have to build it for years and years and years before you're truly at a point where you're taking from the business, versus a high cash flow business like an info product, but doesn't really have a lot of asset value where you're not going to go off and sell it. Let me share a couple stories. First of all, one story. Years ago, I don't know if you remember this, Joel. It was like 2 or 3 years ago now. You and I went on a hunt. Okay. We talked to like 3 or 4 people. I won't say names, but like big names in info and big names outside of info. Okay. And we were trying to figure out why it is that all the guys that are in info are wanting to go off and build quote unquote real businesses that have crazy asset value and all this stuff. And the opposite was also true. We had guys that, like a Patrick Bet-David, who you look at, who built a real business. He sold his insurance company for multiple 9 figures, and yet he has an info business with his consulting stuff, right? Or other guys that we've seen in the M&A space who are on PE, and they've done tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in real business, and yet they're looking to get into the info space or the course selling space or whatever.
The amount of people that you built a relationship with that are on the outside very rich from a real business that then have asked Sergio, yo, can you please help me with an info business? It's
hilarious. Crazy. It's actually wild. Still to this day, they text me, want to do this. But what's interesting is I totally understand why they think what they think. In the same way, in retrospect, I know that was a big dilemma in our paths, in our careers. We were trying to debate what's next for us. I actually understand in retrospect why we were having that debate. And so now, this is the way I look at it. I have a very clear perspective, at least as of now, as to how I would do this. I think it truly depends on the season of your life. So if I was just getting started in business and I didn't have any skills and I didn't really have money, well, then going off and building a bajillion-dollar company that I'm going to go off and sell in 10 years, it's kind of a bit of a pipe dream. And I'm not saying it can't happen. It's just not as practical as starting a info business where you could be profitable within the first 30 days of you running this business, right? As opposed to building the next Facebook or a crazy software or, even like an insurance company where it might take you 6 months, 12 months to really be profitable, right? But I do think the opposite becomes true. Once you get to the point where you have decent amount of liquidity, you've got $5, maybe $10 million in the bank, how much more cash do you actually need? At that point, and this is a personal decision, I would rather go off.
You need an extra 10.
Of course, you need an extra 10, right? But I would rather at that point go off and maybe I'm not going all in on enterprise value. However, I am beginning to play in that game and diversify. So maybe I'm dabbling a little bit in some things that do have high enterprise value. So for example, Joel and I have made some investments where they're high risk, high reward. Maybe they work in 5 years, 10 years, and it winds up being the best decisions we've ever made. Or maybe they don't work at all and they flop. But the reason we could play that enterprise value game is because we've earned the right from a skill standpoint to understand what is a good opportunity in the first place. And number two, we have the cash to do so. Whereas if you're just getting started, it's not something I would recommend whatsoever. So that's my answer on cash flow versus enterprise value. I think it ultimately depends on the season in life in which you're in. I would love to hear your take.
I think it depends on what you want, right? If and also just who you are. For example, you look at people that have built massive enterprise value softwares. I promise you they weren't looking at like on YouTube being like, should I go enterprise value or cash flow? They just had an idea and they were like, I'm building this no matter what, and had that EQ and IQ to actually go out and be able to execute it, right? So I think that that's one. It's based on who you are. Like if I had the IQ, let's just be real. If I had the IQ of Mark Zuckerberg, I would probably be building something else. That's just if I had the IQ of Steve Wozniak, I would literally be creating physical products, and I would be an engineer or do something that has way more potential, right? Like you look at the guy that made the Oculus headset, and now he's building military products. And he has $1 billion company. I think he's valued at over $10 billion. That's who he was. No one told him, hey, this is the path you should go down on. He was just primed for enterprise value. On the flip side, you and I are great at content. We're great at ads. We're great at sales teams. So it's like, what kinds of businesses tend to align with that? And looking back, they have most often been cash flowing businesses, not enterprise value businesses. So I think it's based on who you are. I think it's based on what you want. Just like Sergio said, what season of your life you're in. If you're like, I just want to stack cash, then go after a cash flowing business. If you're willing to risk it all and you have money, like and you're in a place where you can do that, then try to build something massive. But here's my actual, here's the actual take though. What I would actually do is I would go all in on cash flow and let the enterprise value play slap you in the face. And if it doesn't, then don't force it. Most people are like, I need to build enterprise value, and they're just operating from an abstract place. They're like, I need to go build a software. That is such a dumb starting point. What you should instead do is, for example, let's say you have a chiro agency. You build your marketing agency working with chiropractors as big as possible. And if you start to see, oh, interesting, most of the patients can't actually afford care plans. What if we offer financing? Oh, what if I become the next financing company for chiropractors? Because I remember when talking with chiropractors, most of them didn't mention financing. Compared to like dentists, they always mention financing. Now you're building, now you are the bank to chiropractors. Bigger play, has enterprise value, but it slapped you in the face. You didn't operate from like an abstract place. So for example, now I'll just be honest with you guys. When we look at offers, what we ask ourselves is there a software that our clients are already going to be needing or using with our
At
info
scale.
product. Yes. That doesn't cost much to rebuild that we can then go out and rebuild. Because now we have cash flow first, but all of our clients for our info products are then having to buy a software anyways, and it happens to be ours. That's how we're trying to get it to slap us in the face and come to us instead of us going to it. I'll just be open. Me and Sergio have both lost at least $150,000 investing in a software because we did it from an abstract place. We were like, let's build a software. Alex Becker said we should build a software. Let's build a software. Okay, what ideas do you have? Ooh, what about this? I feel like that's the wrong way to approach it. You're going to end up losing the money. Whereas if you build,
you should almost be reactive to a software. Everyone's trying to be proactive in building. Yeah, everyone's trying to be proactive in building from a place of like, I need to build a software as opposed to, or I want to build a software, as opposed to being from a reactive place. Oh crap, I need to build a software because it'll make my business better. That's a perfect example. So, and that is, by the way, a way where you can marry both enterprise value and cash flow. Because you could build an info business that, let's, for example, say it's a biz op and you're getting thousands of people coming in on a low ticket $27 product. Whether they wind up ascending into your core flagship offer, you now have 1,000+ people you could squeeze into some sort of SaaS, assuming it actually solves a problem in the business you're currently building. But with softwares,
don't think I just want to build a SaaS for my clients. Think, I got
to solve a problem in the business.
Oh, yeah, and like they're already using the SaaS anyways, and everyone's signing up. Why not just build it? What about the idea of like the big play? Because you see all these people that are like, let's do a big play, but then they all come back. Like, for example, Ty Lopez was like, I'm going to go build a private equity firm for e-com brands, and he acquired Radio Shack and bodybuilding.com, and then now he's back to selling info products. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay.
No, and I like Ty. I think he's a great guy.
Ty's a good dude. Okay, it's a good question. So I'll give you my honest raw take on this. If you succeed, will you make more money with a big play that's not info, not making money online with different various opportunities, whatever? The answer is of course. But the success rate is so slim that the risk to reward isn't as attractive as like playing the info game. So I'll give you an example. I actually had a conversation with a good friend of mine. His name is Derek Fay. We spoke, I don't know, like a week or maybe 2 weeks ago now. And he comes from the M&A background. So he's used to buying businesses, acquiring businesses, or he'll even acquiring businesses or partnering with businesses that are already existing. And his businesses have gone off and done hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. But he also told me he's had quite a few that failed and didn't do all that well, that were quote unquote big plays. And so I just think it depends on the risk to reward ratio. If realistically you have a 10% success rate or even a 5% success rate, which is probably more practical on a massive big play, would you rather do that and make $100 million, or would you rather make $50 million, $25 million over the course of your entire career on a 70% chance of success? I think to me, it's a mathematical equation. I see it as
knowing that most people, even though they say they want a big play, they will actually be happy with that 25 to 30 million.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? That say
they want a big play actually realize there's a cost to a big play. Is the cost of likely failure, and there's the cost of sacrificing your life.
Your life, everything. You want to hear something interesting, Joel? I didn't tell you this yet because we haven't talked about it. So I had a call with Amin earlier. And for context, guys, Amin is a client of ours. We worked with him for a while. He went off and scaled, I think, 2 or 3 agencies. He even went off and acquired an agency inside of our program. And he tells me today, he's like, Sergio, I figured out who I am. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I think you're right. You know, for years, I was telling you, I want to have a big play. I want to make all this crazy money and keep going for more. And now he's making $25K a month from a separate venture he's got. He's making another like 15, 20K a month or whatever take home from a separate venture. He's like, I'm good. I don't want to take away from my existing lifestyle to add on an extra, who knows, potentially millions of dollars a year, but sacrificing my current life. I'm good now. And so he learned the hard way that there absolutely is a cost to going after a quote unquote big play. Your family might be the cost of that. Your health might be the cost of that. There's a guy who I met there's a guy who I met in the PE space. I didn't tell you this either, Joel, who actually went through a divorce. This is back when we were last year when we were. So he went through a divorce because he was going after this exit that he assumed was going to be life-changing, make him $150 million or whatever. And it cost him his marriage. And he's like, I never got it back. I never got the feeling back. I never got the relationship back. And the exit didn't even wind up happening. And I was trying to play big. And so, Denise asked me like 3 weeks ago, she said, if you could trade lives with Elon Musk, who's, by the way, going through some controversy right now with Trump. I said, no. I said, I don't want that guy's life. He's the richest man in the world, right?
You ask most people that question, like, would you trade your life with this person? Most people would actually say no. They like their life. So it's like, if you like your life, just know that you're going to be giving up a lot of it to get to that next level. And here's another thought. Everyone talks about, oh, let's just play bigger. Dog, if you could, you would. If you could have played bigger, you would have played bigger. Like
the guys who are actually playing bigger aren't questioning, should I play bigger? They're just playing bigger.
Yeah.
They just are. I promise you, they just are.
Sometimes it's a matter of skill, like IQ. Like if you had to measure me against Steve Wozniak, and we got evaluated as 5-year-olds. With Steve Wozniak had over 200 IQ, I believe. I could double check. Can you double check that on your phone real quick? Yeah. But you compare me and Steve Wozniak, the likelihood of Steve Wozniak being successful if he committed himself to business and tried as hard as I did would be way higher. So it's like, if you could play bigger, you would. That's number one. And number two, there's also an element of luck. There's also an element of timing that is outside of your control. So it's like, let's play bigger. Let's play bigger. That's such a stupid question. Or how do we play bigger? How do we play bigger? It's a bad question to ask because it's either predetermined based on your natural abilities, and a lot of times it's outside of your control. So I just do you really think that? I just look at some CEOs that have made tremendous amount of, like, you guys know, there's people that you watch that have made so much money and you go, they're not that much smarter than me. They don't have something crazy that I don't have. It was a lot of the times timing, luck, or in some cases, they are way smarter than you.
Steve Wozniak has a 200 IQ, which for the record is 0.000 top 0.003% of the population. So you're not going to be Steve Wozniak. And the thing is, this is getting, to quote Gary Vee, it's like a lot of success is just knowing yourself. Because if you attempt the things that Steve Wozniak would attempt with probably an average, let's just assume you even have an above average IQ. Let's assume you even have above average IQ.
Come close to Steve's.
And you're still going to fail. That's just the reality of it.
Even if I'm in the top 3%, guys. Top 3%. So you line me up with 100 people. I'm in the top 3 out of 100. He's going to be number one most. I can't even calculate for you because I'm not Steve. He could probably calculate it.
Top 0.00. I don't even know what percentage that even means.
Let's not even try, bro. Let's stick to sales marketing.
So the question is, I don't think the appropriate question to ask yourself is, how do I play bigger? I think the question is, first and foremost, are you satisfied with the game you're currently playing right now? Are you fulfilled? Do you feel like you're being challenged? Because I do think that's important, especially as a man.
I like that.
When you want to be. Yeah, do you feel like you're? Am I personally within my skill sets? Am I being challenged? That's all that really matters.
Instead of asking, should I play it bigger? It should be, how can we play it in the next level?
Exactly, and you keep essentially trading up your business to the next level that you've earned the right to play in, and that's it. I think that you'll be a lot more successful in that way.
And I think you'll wait. if you play all of your levels properly to the max ability, which by the way, most people try to jump levels because they, again, read Alex Becker talking about just playing bigger. And it's like, no, you haven't even scaled an agency to 50K a month yet. Why don't you start there? You know, but let's say that you've maxed it out each level and you've slowly gone up. You're going to end up with a multi-millionaire, like a deca-millionaire even. You're going to be set for life. So it's, and most people would be happy with that. And and by the way, when you're just starting out, you're willing to trade for the big play. You're like, I'll trade my entire life for billions. That's because you're broke. You trade for anything. Like it's a bad place to start from. The question is, once you have $10 million in the bank account, and you're comfortable and you have a really nice multi-million-dollar house and you have all the cars you could ever want, you could fly first class, you could eat wherever you want. In that world, would you then sacrifice your life for the next play?
Yeah.
And for most people, the answer
that's a great way. That's a great way to look at it. That's a great way to look at it, because I think that, and it's going to sound kind of weird, sometimes the more money you make, the less you'd actually want to make that trade, because you have more to lose. And so, yeah, like if you had 25 million, if you had even $10 million in your account right now, would you feel the need to play bigger? Or would you be like, you know what? I've got my family, I've got a house, I'm set up, I don't need nothing crazy and flashy. I'm going to continue to challenge myself on a quarter by quarter, year by year, decade basis, but I'm going to earn the right to play the next level, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that's a way better question for people to ask themselves. So, man, I think this was we went over ads.
We actually answered 4 questions without even realizing it, because
what are they?
The
ads versus content.
So the first question we asked was ads only, content only. Next, we asked cash flow versus enterprise. Then we went over a big play, but 10% chance, 5% chance of success versus a more practical play that's still worth doing, but with a higher success rate. Maybe it's not massive, but it's got a higher success rate. We actually addressed that one as well. So I think we answered 3 good questions. Yeah, 3 really good ones.
I don't have anything else.
I say we just end it off here. The next ones they're not really as good, like rich audience versus mass market.
That's a good one. We'll leave it for the next episode. Yeah, tune in for episode number 6. We'll keep in.
I like this. Guys, give us some feedback. How do you guys like the asking ourselves questions, and maybe more bringing you into our world and how we actually talk to ourselves? Because this is a real-time example of the real conversations that Joel and I will have late at night when we're just giving each other a quick call. So give us some feedback. Do you like this sort of content?
And it's taken us years to get to these answers, by the way. And a lot of just trying it and testing. And so it's cool to be able to share. Like me and Sergio have been talking about, should we go after a big play, and have made that mistake since I met him.
Since before we were even partners, by the way. Since before
when we
had just agencies, like 6 or 7 years ago now.
What's the bigger play?
I know.
The bigger play is doing your business that you're currently doing to the best of your ability and growing it as much as humanly possible. And then being like, cool, what's the next level after this? That's the big play for most people. Because again, if you could, you would.
If you could, you would. But I would also argue, if you could, you wouldn't even ask the question.
Exactly.
I don't think Zuckerberg said, should I do a big play? He just said, I'm going to build Facebook.
Think about this. Let's say you're a little kid and you're interested in nuclear physics, for example, and that's your passion, and that's what you obsess over. Or let's say that you're obsessed with science. This one's a more practical one. Let's say you're obsessed with science and engineering. Those are like your 2 main passions, and you're extremely smart, and you build a technology that revolutionized. I tore my ACL now twice, guys. I'm done with basketball, side note, but I know a lot about ACL tears. It's a very intense surgery. Imagine if there was some sort of solution with how you do the surgery that cuts down the recovery process to 1 month. Every single knee surgeon in the United States of America would pay you a lot of money, because now why would someone go to this surgeon that takes 9 months to recover? We could use this new surgical solution that takes 1 month to recover. I can't solve that problem, guys. My IQ will take me to being, I can generate leads for the service. That's what I can do. I can generate leads. And look, that's 100. If I work with every surgeon in the United States, helping them generate leads, that's a multi 8-figure company, potentially even 9. So like, that's still a great company, but I'm not going to be a billionaire in the healthcare space. So
I say we end it off here, bro. You want to close it out?
If you could, you would.
If you could, you would.
Peace.
If you could, you wouldn't even be asking.